So this is going to be a very, very interesting video that I'm going to make. In this video, it's going to be very controversial. It's going to be about what I think is actually like the cause of like non-heterosexuality in some way or another. And I think there's a lot of evidence to actually support my theory. So without further ado, I'll just go straight into it. So I've got ChatGPT open here. I've used it so many times that, you know, it kind of doesn't really like me anymore. But anyways, this is obviously a joke, if you can't tell. But that is just something else. It's actually, I just edited it. It's actually not, I mean, yeah, anyone can do it really. It's just very easy to do, but yeah, the way that I want to go about this is I want to tell you how I came to this different conclusion and why I started questioning it to begin with. And I guess the first thing that made me start questioning the whole inborn theory of homosexuality was just certain characteristics associated with homosexuality that, I don't know, just didn't really make sense to me. I guess the biggest one is increased levels of hypersexuality in homosexual cohorts. I could ask it here, is there evidence of increased levels of hypersexuality in homosexual cohorts? Let's see here. Yes, there is some empirical evidence that suggests higher levels of hypersexuality. Yeah, it's more related to like masturbation and frequency and pornography use and all that other kind of stuff. But it's quite interesting. Why would homosexuals be more hypersexual than heterosexual people? And I just started to get this feeling that like homosexuality is not really a sexuality. It's more of like something else that's going on, you know. Just different, completely different thing to like heterosexuality. Like this whole idea of sexuality, I honestly think it's a psychological operation, because I don't think there is sexuality. I think there's just like if you are a male, you're attracted to a female. If you're a female, you're attracted to a male. Everything else is like a perversion in a sense. It's like something going wrong, you know. And I don't know. I just think this is like blatantly obvious to me, at least. And I just don't understand this culture that we're living in with this whole sexuality movement. It just doesn't really make good sense to me at all. Also, evolutionarily speaking, it doesn't make any goddamn sense whatsoever. Yeah, let's see. So yeah, this is saying that there is evidence, so I guess I'll just go here and check it out. Let's see. Results also demonstrated LGBTQ males had the highest scores in other possible indicators of hypersexuality: frequency of masturbation, number of sexual partners, frequency of pornography viewing. I don't like that it says LGBTQ males. It's kind of confusing. I don't know if they're referring to like trans, all those other ones as well. Could be. But I do remember seeing a study showing that it's also with just purely homosexuals as well. It's interesting. So that's not the only thing that kind of piqued my interest. The other thing that piqued my interest was, you know, I was just scouring around and I was like, increased copper in homosexuals, you know? And if I show you here, is there evidence of increased copper in Homosexual males. Let's see here. There is no credible evidence. There's no credible scientific evidence showing that homosexual males have increased copper levels. Can you do a thorough check of older studies? I hate it when ChatGPT is so liberal, man. Older studies. Let's see. I just want the fucking truth, you know what I'm saying? Just give me the truth. I don't want some woke bullshit. Let's see. Du har fundet flere alle studier. Nej, men mange af disse studier... Hvad? Nej, man, du er fucking idiot, man. Significantly compared a convenient sample of white southern men who patronized gay bars reported significantly elevated whole blood copper. Let's take a look at this one. I mean, look, it says like recreational drug users, 81% inhaled nitrites per treating. How the fuck is that gonna like give you copper toxicity? You know? It's stupid as fuck. And like, man. Fuck that they halted this research as well so long ago. No single causative factor could be identified to explain the significantly low zinc and elevated copper levels measured in whole blood. Ooh, we're onto something, guys. We're onto something. Yes. I hope they didn't hear me. Fuck's sakes, that was too loud. That's far too loud. Yes. So yeah, this was like one of the only studies that they did. There were like some follow-up ones that they did. Oh yeah, they also found some copper is higher in the newer ones too. When they just blamed it on AIDS. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know why they didn't do more research into this. They kind of seemed to hold it off to the 1990s. Don't really know why. I mean, I kind of know why, but you know, it's kind of weird. Yeah, they should have continued with this research. So yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so I found that and I was like, copper levels increased in homosexuals. Could the copper be causing the homosexuality? You know? And then I started to like think a lot about it and I was like, like estrogen and copper kind of go together. And, you know, estrogen is primarily found in females versus compared to males. And females have higher copper levels, naturally speaking, than males. And also copper decreases testosterone as well, makes the skin smoother, you know. But I didn't really have any mechanism of like what is actually occurring, and I didn't really understand why it's like 20%. That's the other thing. It's like there's research showing, right, that like 20% of males, the population, have had some form of like homosexual attraction. So let me just try to find that real quick. Oh yeah, I'm also gonna like touch on pedophilia as well, but that is coming up. Let's see. Where is it? Where is it? I think it's this one. Yeah. This one here. This is the only study that I found, by the way, where they actually did it properly. Because what they did, right? First of all, you have to separate the sexes. Because the males and the females react completely differently with sexual orientation. It's a lot easier to look into it with the males, actually, because the females are very... Because of the difference in brain structure and the hormones, females are more like emotionally driven, and they're not as like concrete in their, you know, actions and thoughts as men. So they're better tuned emotionally, but concretely wise, they're going to change their minds a lot of the times, and sexual orientation isn't an outlier on that. So you'll find that 75% of females are strictly heterosexual, and more than 90% of males are strictly homosexual. So heterosexual. So there's a difference there. But yeah, this study just looked at males, I guess. Of males here, yeah. So 20.8% was the highest value, and that really caught my eye because I was like, ooh, around 20%. I feel like I've seen that number before. And I've seen it everywhere because it keeps coming up, and that's what really got my attention going even more. I was like, why is it around 20%? And yeah, they also, here they found like 20.3%, but this is kind of weird though, because it's talking about males having had a homosexual experience. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, do you even need to be gay to have a homosexual experience? Like, what if other people just like hit on you and you're not even gay but you're hot or whatever? I mean, that happened to me before, but it didn't, luckily it didn't escalate beyond them asking me for my number or whatever, but still happens, you know what I'm saying? Let's see, same gender, sex. Oh yeah, I was just looking at, trying to look at other stuff here. Yeah, so I think I'll move on to pedophilia now, which is like a hot topic, kind of, slightly, I guess. So I couldn't help but notice, yeah, I couldn't help but notice it. I found multiple studies showing that around 20% showed some degree of sexual interest in children. Some degree. Keyword there, some degree. So non-zero. Like, that could be anything above zero, right? Even small numbers. So this is a very sensitized value right here. The majority of it is probably very low, right? We don't know how steep the curve is here. But yeah, this is a very interesting number, and I kept finding around the same number in multiple different studies. This is from 2021. This is from 1996. Look how similar these numbers are. 23.1%, 22.2%, and it matches so closely with that homosexual, percentage, around 20%. And then here, this is in 2006, 21% again. So this is 3 studies showing from like completely different decades, even showing almost the same percentage of males who have a sexual interest in children. It's always around 20%, somewhere around there, right? And I found that very interesting. I was like, why is that the case, right? And I'm just trying to look through these studies here to try to remind myself of something. Yeah, I think I'll just move on. So what I think is occurring, right? I think that there is... I'll just show you real quick. So I found... yes. I was looking into this researcher called Dr. William Walsh. He's a retired chemical engineer, and he founded his own institute called the Walsh Institute, and he specializes in like methylation issues. And he built from the work of Carl C. Pfeiffer, who was like I think a biochemist or a chemist. He was able to cure some of his schizophrenic patients with vitamin B3, and he also found a lot of like evidence on like copper toxicity and a lot of psychological issues as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, William Walsh, he actually tested like 30,000 people, and he found that 22% had like undermethylation, and he diagnosed them as undermethylated using the SAMI to SAH ratio, which is like SAMI like S what is it? S-adenosine methylmethionine. I think it's like S-adenosine methionine to S-adenosine homocysteine, adenosine homocysteine, something like that. Is that what that is? I just want to quickly make sure that I don't get this wrong. Yes, S-adenosyl methionine and S-adenosyl homocysteine. Yes, primary methyl group donor. Product formed after group. So I guess it's almost like a receive, like a send and receive kind of thing, and you're like looking at that ratio, and then you can kind of make a some kind of really good guess on how methylated that person is and how undermethylated that person is, and then just categorize everyone. You can get that value 22%. I guess that's probably how we did it. It was very smart, I guess. And the way that methylation works is you're basically methylation, in a sense, it's kind of what is behind epigenetics in some way or another, because when you transfer methyl groups, which are, it's like a carbon group that's saturated with 3 hydrogen atoms, so SH3, CH3, sorry. Basically, when you attach that onto the DNA helix, it can silence genes in that area. So if you methylate a gene site, you're silencing that gene site. But if you undermethylate that gene site, you're detaching the methyl group off that site, and that actually like upregulates that the genes in that area. So undermethylating is actually turning genes on, and overmethylating is actually turning genes off or silencing them, which is quite interesting. So yeah, 22%, and it's so interesting how this number is so similar to those ones in the Paedophilia cohort, and also the ones in like the homosexual cohort as well. Paedophilia cohorts and homosexual cohort. That is really interesting. And I kind of wanted to like look deeper into what is actually going on. And I come to the conclusion that I think it is related to copper. I think there is some kind of copper toxicity occurring. I don't know if it's causing the methylation issues to begin with. I think that's kind of like a debate that's very hot online at the moment, where it's like, is it the heavy metals that are causing the methylation issues, or is it the methylation issues that are causing the heavy metal issues, you know? I don't know right now. I've looked into the evidence. It seems very mixed, to be honest with you. I have this feeling though that it is probably related. It is actually probably the methylation that comes first and then the metal issues afterwards. Because every human gets exposed to certain amounts of metals in their lives, and it doesn't really make sense to me how only a certain percentage would like, you know, get certain issues when everyone is exposed to these kinds of metals. That doesn't really make sense to me, you know. But yeah, I think it is a complex issue. Yes, and I want to go into more of like like you might be wondering, right? It's like, hey Peter, if you're so correct about this, shouldn't there be like a crosstalk between autism, pedophilia, and homosexuality, right? If it's all related to copper, shouldn't there be some like reverse causality going on as well, right? There is. There is. There's actually a lot of research showing that the people who are most prone to homosexuality are actually autistic people. They're around 7 times more likely actually to be homosexual than normal people, or non-heterosexual than normal people, and they're actually also more likely to be pedophilic as well. There was one study from Sweden, I believe, and not only do they find that the autistics had increased levels of hypersexuality, but they also had increased levels of pedophilia as well. I could show you right now. Where is that Swedish study showing that ASD people have increased hypersexuality percent? I just want to see if it can find it for me. Yes, give it to me. Oh, is it German? Where is it? Is it this one here? Let's see here. I want the full study. Where is it? What the fuck? What's this? What is this? I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at here. What is this? Wants me to download a CV. I think that's the wrong way to look at it here. Let me try this one. Ooh, this one looks interesting. So I'm just gonna scroll down here. Okay, let's see here. Masturbation frequency, 4 to 6 times a week, 32% compared to 10% of the healthy controls. Right, that's very interesting. 2-3 times a week. Oh, sorry, this is a woman. That was a man. This is a kicker. Look at this. Hypersexuality, 30%, 30.4% compared to 3.5% of the controls. That is insane to me. That tells me that there's something going up with that, right? And look at this one here. Pedophilic sexual fantasies of female children. 28.6% versus 0 of the healthy controls. I mean, obviously there are probably some here, but they're probably not going to say anything. But this is still quite high, right? Like, we're talking about full-blown sexual fantasies here. I mean, that isn't a small thing, you know. And even here, male children, 3.6%. Still quite high in my opinion. Yeah, it's very interesting. Even here, like exhibitionistic fantasies, 10.7% compared to 3.5%. That is a large difference. And even here as well, like look how much higher this is compared to this, right? So there's obviously something in these autistic people compared to these healthy controls, which is like increasing this kind of stuff, right? It's increasing the propensity for this kind of stuff. And it's the same with the homosexuals. They also have increased hypersexuality, right? It's very, very interesting. Okay, so now I need to go into the mechanisms here. Oh, this is gonna be a fucking headache. Okay, so there's something in the research being studied. It's called reward deficiency syndrome, and it's what a lot of scientists now are starting to believe what non-heterosexual orientation comes from. And what reward deficiency syndrome refers to is there's different kinds of dopamine responses in the brain. There's tonic, which is the background dopamine, and phasic, which is the dopamine from a specific response to something. So if it's like, if you are expecting food very shortly, or if you're getting ready to eat a meal, or if you have sex and you have an orgasm, that is where the phasic dopamine increases, and it's like a spike, like an impulse almost. And what a lot of these researchers theorize is people who have this reward deficiency syndrome or low tonic dopamine in their brains are more likely to kind of turn to more extreme means of getting pleasure in some way or another. And this includes, pedophilic sexual content, homosexuality, non-heterosexuality, taboo things, that increase like maybe like the fear response, because the fear response and the sexual response are like kind of intertwined in some way. So then that would like increase the like arousal to like limits that feel like satisfying to these people, because they can't feel satisfied with like being normal, I guess, if that makes sense. Let me see. Yeah, so that's a really interesting study. And what's even more interesting is there's actually a lot of research to show that individuals with autism actually have high levels of copper. So I could actually show you that right now. So I could just look this up. Let's see what it says. Yes, there's some evidence. Meta-analyses, 29 case control studies, 2,500 ASD, found that blood copper levels in ASD were not significantly higher than controls. Paradoxically, hair copper was lower in ASD children in that same meta-analysis. The thing is, blood copper levels, first of all, they're not that accurate, and also hair copper levels being low is also an indicator of copper toxicity. It's a very difficult thing to understand how to read copper properly, but you have to like look at all the minerals in the hair mineral analysis in a certain way in order to actually understand what's going on. So you can have, there's like the sodium to potassium, I think it's like a sodium to potassium ratio that you have to look at, and also like calcium to magnesium ratio, and you can like actually determine. And also if like there's also apparently if there's high levels of aluminium, then it's like a done deal, and you will have copper toxicity going along with that apparently. And there is there's even more research to show that ASD individuals have high levels of aluminium in their brains. Yeah. Shout out to Metals Bruh for giving me that Hexley thing. Really, really good. Hexley and Mold et al. Really, really good. Yeah, but here, plasma copper was significantly elevated versus neurotypical controls. The same study showed that a high copper to zinc ratio correlated with several symptom severities, language attention, all that stuff. So yeah, they're able to correlate it with symptom severity, which is even this is very interesting, very, very interesting. Nice. Zinc plus B6 therapy. Yeah, here, hair studies, they found that children with severe autism had significantly higher copper levels in their hair compared to controls. This suggests that in at least some subgroups there is elevated copper in tissues. Yeah. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. I mean, obviously, because people can't really read copper test properly, they're going to say it's only some of it, but I do believe that it's all of it, in my opinion. So the mechanism. I found some rat studies that showed that copper actually increases dopamine in the striatum area of the brain, which includes the ventral tegmental area nucleus accumbens, which is the mesolimbic pathway responsible for sexual arousal and pleasure. It showed that copper increased dopamine levels in that area by around 300%. I think a little bit more than 300%, which is insane. That's an insane amount, right? And copper has been shown to control dopamine in the brain. It has been shown to modulate dopamine in the brain. Both copper deficiency and toxicity have been shown to modulate dopamine in the brain. And also, copper is a cofactor for dopamine beta hydroxylase, which converts dopamine into adrenaline. And what's so interesting is ASD individuals, elevated levels of anxiety. Homosexual individuals, elevated levels of anxiety. Paedophilic individuals, elevated levels of anxiety. Do you know what else is very? Do you know what other disorders very high in copper that I've seen? OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. 25% of ASD individuals have obsessive compulsive disorder. Homosexuals are 7 times more likely to have OCD than normal people. Paedophilic individuals are more likely to have OCD. In fact, the whole non-heterosexuality, they found that the thalamostriatal cortical loop, the one that is responsible for OCD, apparently that's like almost the exact thing that's occurring in pedophilic sexual interest or something like that. It's apparently what researchers are looking into, and they found some evidence of that, which is quite interesting. All this seems to be like related together, and in my personal opinion, the way that I think this whole thing develops, right, I think it's like some prenatal stress, and that like fucks up the methylation cycles in the gestational period when the fetus is developing in the womb. It messes up the methylation cycles. And what's so interesting, there's actual studies showing this. Wait, let me try to look this up. They actually found that what's that study showing ASD children's baby teeth having altered levels of zinc and copper, right? see here. Ooh, General Nature. Very good, very prestigious. Yeah, this is an interesting study. I don't think that was the one I was looking at. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's other metals as well, to be fair, as well. Let me see here. I think this is the one. This was the one here that I was seeing. Yeah, this is the one. Zinc and copper metabolic cycles in baby teeth linked to autism. That's what it was. Gotta find the study here. What do they find? It says we tested whether zinc copper cycles which regulate metal metabolism are disrupted in ASD. Using novel tooth matrix biomarkers that provide direct measures of fetal elemental uptake, we developed a predictive model to distinguish participants who would be diagnosed with ASD in childhood from those who did not develop the disorder. We show that 3 quantifiable characteristics of fetal and postnatal zinc to copper rhythmicity are altered in ASD. The average duration of zinc copper cycles, regularity with which the cycles recur, and the number of complex features within a cycle in all independent study sets and in the pooled analysis, zinc copper rhythmicity was disrupted in ASD cases. It doesn't say it here clearly, but I did read this study, I think, and it did say that it's like they found a lot of evidence showing that it was like prenatally it was disturbed. So that is very interesting. Because if you drill into the teeth, you're going back in time, so that's why they're looking into the teeth, basically. Did I look into the teeth here? I think they did. Yeah. Oh well. I mean, I know here they did. Yeah. Anyways. But yeah, like the other thing that I was thinking about is like if pedophilia and autism and homosexuality are like all kind of linked, right? With like copper toxicity and like prenatal stress and all that kind of other stuff that's going on, wouldn't it make sense that we see like increased levels of ASD in pedophilic cohorts, right? We do. That was part of what James Cantor's research. In fact, a lot of the stuff that he found with the brain abnormalities, that was kind of just linked to autism. Elevated levels of left-handedness, all that kind of stuff. All linked to autism. In ASD individuals, it's very common to understand that around 23 to 24% have left-handedness, are left-handed, right? Compared to the 10 to 12% of the normal population. Same thing in the pedophilic cohorts. What's interesting is that's the ones who have offended, and they make this argument online where it's like, bro, you can't look at those people. You have to look at the non-offending ones too, and like make correlations off of that as well. But if you think about in terms of intensity, if if the thoughts and urges are more like stronger, like strength wise, the higher the chances of them to like offend. So offending is actually a really good indicator of the severity of these like perversions, I think. So I don't actually think it discounts it at all. I actually think it actually further increases the validity, I think. So yeah, I think this is very, very interesting. Please tell me what you think in the comments below. I wanted to talk also about like the genetic side of it as well, with the SLC6A3, SLC6A4, as well as the 9R repeats and the 10R repeats, and also with the COMT and the MET-MET and the MET-VAL and the VAL-VAL genetic variants. There was a recent study that showed that SLC6A4 has like different methylation patterns in people with a pedophilic disorder, which is quite interesting. And that was a very recent study, actually. I think that was like 2020s. So that is very, very interesting. I feel like it's definitely related to methylation. I think the methylation disruption is where it all starts in like the prenatally speaking, for autism, homosexuality, pedophilia as well. And then you get these side effects that occur that like, you know, push the individual to like go these certain ways, kind of. Either via like sexual preoccupation or like with the OCD and the thalamostriatocortical loop, whatever. Like repeating same thoughts over and over again. I really want to also go into the genes as well, but that's like slightly complex, and the research doesn't really tie them in very well, but I think it's just because it's very multifactorial in that sense. But this is what I basically theorize with the whole copper thing. I think copper is probably the underlying thread that connects all of it. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please, please, please find me in the comments. I want to be wrong. I always want to be wrong. Please prove me wrong. Thank you, guys.